What's up, guys? It's your girl Haley Pro, aka the SoundChick. For today's interview, I'm interviewing Nate The Martian again. As I'm sure you're aware from a previous interview, Nate is a rap artist and he was in the process of releasing his latest album, which is Heartbreak Radio. Now that the album is released, Nate and I sat down and spoke with each other again. Nate discusses what it really took for him to write and produce this album, and we specifically dive deep into 3 tracks, which would be Dirty Balloons, Wheels, and Peach Addiction. So stay tuned if you're an avid rap listener. This guy has a lot to say about his latest release, and it's definitely worth the listen.
Hey yo, what it do? It's your favorite main protagonist, aka the Black Etano Ken, aka the Louis Vuitton Flip Phone Classic Cause He Fancy, aka Nate the Martian, and I'm right here with SoundChick. Follow me on Instagram and SoundCloud at KingXMartian, and make sure y'all follow me on Twitter at Nate_the Martian. Say word.
You just released an album called Heartbreak Radio. What was it like? What was it like releasing this album?
Oh, God. It was a task. I will say that much. Because it's like, I learned a lot through the process of making it. There were certain, rookie mistakes I was making that, my engineer, Smile Dust, he corrected me on. And I was like, no one ever told me. And then, certain songs that would have gone on the album ended up just being fucking scrapped just because I made these rookie mistakes and, I didn't have the necessary things to do what I wanted with them. And thinking about it, low-key pisses me off.
No, I understand that completely. I know that you took sort of this break from social media after releasing it. What type of comments or feedback did you come back to?
Generally positive, I will say that. It's no one ever really had anything bad to say about it. Cause it's not, I'm sure there would be some things if we gotta buy a harsher music reviewer like Anthony Fantano or some shit like that. But, generally when I came back, everybody was like, yo, this is so good. You really did something here. And a lot of people who were following me from the beginning of when I first put out Skill Set, which was my first ever project back in 2018, up to now being my first album in 2020, they're like, oh shit, dude, you really progressed. And your music and your sound has gotten so much better, which made me feel good because it made me know or made me realize that my effort hadn't gone to waste.
Right. What is one comment that stood out to you the most?
Damn, I really have not thought about that. Okay. I guess one of the ones that really stood out to me is somebody just being like, hey, yo, you waited for this. You really put your time into this. So it's not just a bunch of singles clustered together. It's meant to be listened in order.
Right. Yeah. No, I definitely got that vibe. It was very much a concept album. Listeners can pretty much get a POV or a detailed storyline of this relationship, I know that we spoke about the reasoning behind this album a little bit in a previous interview, but do you mind going over it again?
The reason I started it was I had just gotten out of a relationship when I first went to college, my freshman year of college when I was going to university. And during that time, I had a girlfriend who was still in high school because I was 1 year older than she was. So I went off to school, which happened to be in Georgia. So we tried to do long distance. It didn't work. It was on and off. And then just through that process of just that on and off shit, I was like, you know what? I don't know how I feel. So I'm just going to try to put this in music the best way that I can. So Heartbreak can be more than just the romantic aspect where I was coming from, which I found very interesting.
Yeah. It definitely was a different listening experience for me. It was like reading a book. You didn't want to stop listening. Why did you choose now to release Heartbreak Radio?
Specifically because the 14th, the day 14 had such significance to me in my last relationship. We had got together January 14th, 2018. And then every month following that, something always happened on the 14th. And it was fucking weird.
That is weird.
I cannot make this shit up. I can't make it up. It just happened on the 14th every time.
Yeah. That's interesting, though, that it seemed to happen in that particular order.
One of the things that I used to say was 14 forever always. That was one of the things I used to say, just because of the fact that 14 was such a significant number. So like when I started this album, I told myself, I don't care what month I release this on, it has to be on the 14th.
So, Heartbreak Radio is definitely unique. There's a lot of, there's some feature artists in there, or some feature voices. There's some pop culture references. You've got some, like, solid beat tracks, like multiple solid beat tracks within every song. And going back to what you said earlier, your style and voice is pretty unique.
I will say it's just the simple fact that I put so much time and effort into it.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely tell by listening through this album, Heartbreak Radio, that you definitely put a lot of time into and care into, like, each song. Like you said earlier, it's not just random singles placed together. Like, they do have a storyline to them. We're gonna dive deep into 3 specific songs on this album.
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
We're gonna start with, Dirty Balloons, and this is one of my favorites off this album. The lyrics mention the fact that, you know, you guys thought that you guys were going to be pregnant, and then, like, the test was negative. So, like, it's pretty safe to say that this entire album covers, like, pretty, like, key topics and events in this relationship. But what made you choose to write about specific topics, such as the one covered in Dirty Balloons?
So Dirty Balloons came about by my main engineer, Smile Dust.
Mm-hmm.
He has a song called Bed of Balloons, and his song on SoundCloud, Bed of Balloons, is literally like my favorite fucking track that he has ever made, because I still listen to it like constantly. Just like if I'm studying or if I'm walking and shit like that, I love that song. So I was like, yo, let's take that riff that you used in that song, flip it, and make our own Bed of Balloons. And then that Bed of Balloons became Dirty Balloons. So in reference to me writing about these specific topics, I don't know. I will say that it just felt like I needed to get out what I needed to get out. Like, yeah. I wanted to tell everything in order, like, as best as I possibly can. Like, there were certain lines in there, which I don't know if you wanted me to talk about certain specific lines, but there is a line in there that is really crazy when I mention my parents. So Nathaniel Marcus Bell Kirkland the first, which is my dad, because I was named after my dad.
Yeah.
Alana, Danielle, and him, they made the illest. They called him two, but the first of their children I'd abort me, but they achieve a mission. Because naturally, since I was named after my dad, everyone in my family called me two. That was my nickname.
Yeah.
And the craziest part was the exact situation that my parents were in, because my dad was 18, my mom was 17, and the exact same circumstances that I was in my senior year led to me being born. The only difference between me and my parents is I didn't have a kid. I just ended up being here.
Damn, this story's wild.
Yeah, it's very like in depth. I always tell people there's a method to my madness.
Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting bits in Dirty Balloons specifically that I really enjoy. Let's get into the second song, Wheels. To me, this is the track where it, like, first starts to, like, allude to, like, the decline of the relationship. You can definitely, like, sense, like, a whole lot of lust and uncertainty through it, but that's just me. And
no, you'd be correct. And honestly, it's what you take from it. But that is essentially what I was going for, because of the simple fact that Wheels came about, like, I produce Wheels. Like, my engineer sent me the guitar sample and the drums. I made the drum pattern, and I fucked with the guitar, found my own samples, and I made that beat. And the beat came about because when I make beats, sometimes I like to have an idea in mind, or like I'll come up with a word. So the word wheels came to mind. And so then I was like, all right, let me just make this shit. And then wheels came about over the course of maybe like 3 days. It took me 3 days to make that shit. And the thing is, wheels is a key point because at that time, this was right before I was about to go home for Christmas in 2018. So this was prior to me, like, us breaking up, like, again. And not only that, how do I put this without sounding like an asshole? I was hurt as fuck, like, when I found out what everything talks about, because I was so excited to go see her after the end of my first semester, because as soon as I got to college, we were talking about, like, hey, I'm going to see you on Christmas. I'm coming back home for Christmas. I am going to see you. And that was one of the things that really kept me going. Realizing that I couldn't see her anymore and I couldn't hold her the way that I wanted to, because I was so, like, lonely in college. Because, like I said, we were on and off, kind of open, but my thinking at the time, which cut me a break, I was 18, but at the time, my way of thinking is like, all right, I'm going to do whatever, you do whatever, but when I come back home, it's me and you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have my heart.
Right.
And then Wheels also, ends up mentioning the fact that, I got stabbed in the back by a good friend of mine. And then that just leads into Tightrope, which is the very, that's when I started yelling and shit.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. The aggression and the built up emotion, like, finally being, like, released. So intense. It's such an intense album.
I really want to make a fucking video to Wheels. Like, I really want to. I want to so bad.
So, the last song we're going to talk about is Peach Addiction, which is another one of, like, my favorites off this album.
Honestly, let me tell you like this. Peach Addiction doesn't get the love that it really deserves. Because that is, like, my least popular song, like, on, like, the album, like, if you were to look on Spotify. But, like, that song is, like, such a key point. It's, like, ridiculous. Like, it's a good track because it was my first shot at trying drum and bass. Like, that 4 on the floor, like, type thing.
Yeah, it just had so many good lines. It had a good beat. It was definitely, like, I mean, the lyrics allude to, like, a very specific emotion you're feeling, and it's like, holy shit, I really love you. But at the same time, you knew that it was, like, not going in the direction where you wanted it to go. And those emotions are projected very strongly throughout your voice and lyrics. And I know you know the lyrics to your own song, but I'm gonna cite 4 lines, which are the first 4 lines of the song, which is, I know how it feels to be alone. I made this album just to cope. Thinking that you'd hear it was the only thing that kept me going. So...
Ooh, I just got a chill down my body. Honestly, like, me, I had, suffered from, like, suicidal thoughts. And, the only thing keeping me going was my motivation to finish the album. Like, I told myself, like, yo, if I don't finish this album, it is going to be the death of me. So, like, I was so hurt. I was in, like, a really bad emotional state. Damn, I'm lonely as hell, and I just want companionship, really. I don't even want a relationship. I just kind of want a body next to me. You know what I'm saying? That's where it was coming from, that place of. Originally, I wanted her to hear it. Like, that was like, hey, bro, I know you're going to hear this at some point. I know you're going to hear it. Mm-hmm. But eventually it became about, it became less about her hearing it and more about people learning through me. Like, don't fuck up like I did. Because what I did, I do not wish that pain upon my worst enemy. The song is more so from the perspective of me running.
Right.
So even in like the song, you can hear like me breathing like very heavy, like as a sample pushed throughout the beat. So like I'm rapping really fast, and then I break because I'm running out of breath.
Right.
And then I'm a big fan of psychology, and so that break between like the first and second verse, where you hear like my inner voice is going like, you gotta keep running, don't stop,
the bridge,
keep it going, like you're almost there, which is kind of like, you know, because it's the second to last song on the album, so like you're almost there, keep going, don't stop running.
Yeah, would you say that putting together Heartbreak Radio as a whole was a cathartic experience for you?
To a degree. There are certain points where I was like, you know, because like I said, I was learning a lot. But at the same time, you know, it was like, damn, I am constantly writing about this woman, constantly thinking about this woman, trying to craft this story in the best way possible. And so it was just like, damn, because like, geez, I put so much work, so much time into trying to craft this story that it's like, if I don't stop, if I do stop, then all this work, all this pain, all this suffering was for naught. Like, there was no point.
Yeah, I get that. You mentioned that your first, like, motivation was to, like, get her to hear it. Do you know if she ever heard it? Has she even reached out to you about it?
No, I never expected her to. You know, it was that small part of me that was hoping that she would hear it. Like, yeah, bitch, I'm gonna say my side of the story.
So, taking, like, a slight detour here, we spoke earlier about the pop culture references that you've made in this album.
Yes.
Two specific ones that I noticed were you mentioned something about Mary, and then, like, there's the obvious, like, Scott Pilgrim references throughout the album. What made you choose those specific pop culture references?
So, Mary is something, I get it can also be, like, double meaning depending on how you want to look at it, because Mary Jane, that can, you know, be looked at as weed. But the real reasoning behind it was there was a movie in the 90s called There's Something About Mary.
Yeah.
And in that movie, there's this girl named Mary, and literally all the men are just, like, falling over her, like, making fools out of themselves to try and get her attention, and, like, no, I want Mary. And even the guy is like, man, why can't I have a girl like Mary? Like, blah, 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 like, just fighting and fussing over this one woman.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's why I was like, there's something about Mary. There was something about her that I just could not escape, could not, like, get away from me, especially because we actually did watch that movie together at one point. What we used to do, we used to watch a lot of, like, 90s movies because she didn't have, like, cable, but she did have, like, a lot of, like, movies. So we would watch all these 90s movies, and we would also watch some of them early 2000s movies like Austin Powers and other things like that. So when you really look into it, it's very much, like I said, a method to my madness.
Yeah. But it also seems to, like, follow in, like, a continuation of, like, how the relationship was, you know? Like, you just add, like, these little Easter eggs, like, hey, this also happened, and stuff
Pretty
like that.
much.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is also from my perspective, but it can also be taken in any way that the listener wants to, and how they can apply it to their own lives.
Yeah. No, I get that. Well, it's crazy. To close out this interview, though, is there anything else you'd like your fans or listeners of your music to know? Any news or updates of what you're planning in the future?
Well, as far as what I'm planning for the future, I am planning a documentary. I've been putting a documentary together about, like, the making of the album, little things of, like, when I talk to certain people, and all that, so you get, like, a full context and, like, the process of me making the entire project. And also, you know, I'm just, like, stockpiling music. I'm releasing music videos. Like, I plan to continue to grow and do bigger and better projects. So I don't want people to get so attached to, like, one body of work that I've done, and I want them to grow along with me, like, as an artist and as a person. So you can see where my head was at and where it is now. And that's the way I look at it.
Hey guys, it's a SoundChick here again. I hope you enjoy the interview with Nate The Martian discussing his latest album release, Heartbreak Radio. In the meantime, definitely go and follow this man on social media and give his latest album a listen. Thanks for tuning into this interview, and I look forward to having you on the next one. Rock on, my dudes. For more updates on interviews or music reviews, you can go to my website at www.thesound-chick.com or follow me on social media at RealSoundChick. I look forward to headbanging with you guys.